Welcome to the Payments Trilogue, where three seasoned professionals discuss payments and more for Europe and beyond.
Hello, my name is Michael Salmony, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Payments Trilogue. And this time we have a particularly clever thinker around payments with us, who has impressed me over many years on his thinking around open banking, how banks should engage in that and put APIs everywhere. Then on banks' roles in identity, wrote one of the best papers I know on that topic. And now he's changed from being a thinker to doing a startup. So this is a really exciting journey. And what we want to talk to Tony McLaughlin about is stablecoins. Now, for those who come more from the TradFi world, can you give us a bit of an introduction why stablecoins are going to conquer the world and what needs to happen?
Sure, it's great to be here, and thanks very much for the invitation. So the question is, why stablecoins are going to conquer the world? Okay, let me give an analogy. I like a good analogy. So in my life, in terms of music consumption, I've seen vinyl, I've seen magnetic tape, mini disc, iPod, Walkman, CDs. All of these are special purpose technologies which are dedicated to music, and they've been almost entirely replaced by a general purpose technology which is streaming over a phone. In my life in payments, I've seen cash, physical cash, all sorts of checks, all sorts of cards, ACH payments, ACH circuits, real-time payment circuits. And these are all special purpose technologies for payments. And my belief is that stablecoins are the general purpose form factor which encompasses all of the features of those special purpose technologies, and that's why it will take over.
Okay.
So stablecoins are to payments what Spotify is to music.
That's a strong statement because, as I understand it, stablecoins can carry not only money, but they can also carry gold and they can carry real estate and various other things, at least tokenized assets can. So that's maybe the generic part. Is that roughly what you mean? Or?
Yes, indeed. It's the token is general purpose because the token can represent anything. In the same way that when you go to the opera, Michael, I know that you'll hand in your top hat and cane at the cloakroom, and the cloakroom ticket will represent your top hat and cane. But I will go to I will go to a much less expensive venue and hand in my old jacket, and the ticket will represent my old jacket. So in blockchain, public permissionless blockchains, you've got a general purpose way of recording and keeping track of who owns these cloakroom tickets. And these cloakroom tickets can represent anything. And so these tokens on public blockchains are much, much more general purpose than the technology we've had before. And general purpose technology wins. That's why you don't have an alarm clock anymore. You've got your phone. You don't have a calculator anymore, you've got your phone. General purpose technologies tend to subsume use case specific technologies, and that's good.
And one can also send these tickets, which represent my top hat and cane, over the internet, so directly from anywhere to anybody else, right? Which instead of old store and forward and clearing systems,
yes,
and the traditional banking. So maybe you can talk us a little bit through that, how that will change the payments and banking world.
Well, of course. Again, when you move from atoms to bits and bytes, you get a lot more flexibility, and we've seen that we've had dematerialization of financial instruments, which has been very beneficial. But we've dematerialized those instruments into silos. With every FMI being its own silo and every bank being its own silo of record keeping. And now we have available to us general purpose technology for record keeping, which is open, public, and permissionless. Now, of course, it's not ideal in every case that all of the records are in a public registry. There are many use cases where you need to have privacy between the parties. That's also possible to achieve on these infrastructures. And so what I see happening before my eyes is just the steady march of technology, which is from special purpose to general purpose. And public permissionless blockchains are part of that evolution.
That's really interesting. I mean, Xavier, maybe you could help us a little bit here. What the EPC, you've spent your whole professional life building banking infrastructures. Is that all now going to go away because we can just send money over the internet? Or how do you see this new development?
Well, it's not that I have any big idea from my experience at EPC, because we didn't enter into this realm of cryptocurrencies or stable coins. But I can give you my personal opinion. When I teach or I give speeches to audiences and students, I usually start by provoking them, asking whether the monopoly money is money. And after some hesitation, we come to the conclusion that monopoly money, the board game money, is a money. It's a money for the purpose of the game, agreed by the players and according to the rules. That's why it is a money, according also to the Aristotle's definition. So monopoly money is a money because it is the consequence of an agreement. And any money is a consequence of an agreement. It's a consensus. And in fact, it's a social agreement in some sense, going back to Locke and to Rousseau and all those philosophers. But when we can agree that money needs to have that backing of the society, but when we come to the current world in which we need some instruments for the purely digital activity, and that was the reason why cryptocurrencies were created. We had a split, and there were two views which were opposite. The cryptocurrency world, which provided a means and a purpose for some usage that was needed, and that's why they were successful, but it was seen by the other side of the coin by being wild and unregulated and dangerous. So the official world decided to coin a term which is CBDC, central bank digital money, because they understood that money, and that was the tradition, money could only be issued by an authority, the central bank in this case. So those were like two opposite visions. One is fully regulated, very stable, very solid, very unrisky. The other one was even dangerous, and it was even connected to the underground world and criminal activities and all that. So these were like two opposite visions. Stablecoins is an evolution because it comes closer to the middle ground where we can find pros from the two worlds, maybe fewer cons from the two worlds as well. But it's kind of trying to make something of a consensus from those two different worlds. That's where I see the beauty and the usage. And the closer we come to that mixture, to that harmony in between those two worlds, the better. Because I think stable coins will be successful if they can be smartly regulated so that they can be issued and they can be seen by the public as being safe enough. So there needs to be a mixture of also regulation aligning the usage of stable coins. And that's why I think there is something missing in some strategies, that they do not think of this hybrid world in which we can have both aspects, which is what I see in the United States. I see that the aim is to have stable coins, but very much linked to the US dollar. So there must be some overseeing activity, some regulation that allows that to happen and provides a solid foundation to the stable coins. And maybe still in Europe we are lagging behind, and we don't have this appetite for hybrid solutions, which I think are the best ones, because you can combine the richer elements of both worlds. So we need any money to be successful, it needs to be recognized and accepted and backed by a society, by a large society. And for that, you need the functionality provided by, in this case, could be stablecoins, but also that legislation also providing safety and recognition and safety nets and all that.
I mean, Javier, you make the good point that money is a collective illusion. It's only because we all agree that it has value that's what makes it so. And I love your way, sort of from the traditional sense of money to the new. And you could argue that actually Europe is a bit ahead. You know, with MiCA, it was the first in the world, which said one-to-one fiat-backed stable coins, and maybe Wisconsin and the US is catching up. But what do you think, Tony? Would you agree with Xavier's view of the world?
Sure, and I agree that money, nation states, I think, have a strong claim on a monopoly over money as a result of the social contract. It's one of the monopolies that we grant to the nation state, a very strong claim on that monopoly. And properly understood, stablecoins. Interestingly, in the recent publication of the consultation stuff from the UK, they class stablecoins as a crypto asset, which is with reference to fiat. I beg to differ. The best way of thinking about a stablecoin is just a new form factor of fiat. And let me give you by analogy. So, if I describe to you an instrument which is denominated in US dollars, issued by a non-bank, it's a negotiable instrument, it's pre-funded and fully collateralized. What am I describing?
I happen to know the answer of what you're getting to, so I'll let you pull the curtain.
Well, it's a traveler's check.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between a traveler's check and a stablecoin? Atoms versus bytes. This is no difference. Zero difference. So my first job in banking was in traveler's checks 30 years ago. And here I am 30 years later trying to convince crypto kids that stablecoins are traveler's checks and trying to convince regulators that stablecoins are traveler's checks. And this is exactly the synthesis that Javier is pointing to. And frankly, many people around the world are working on stablecoin regulation. It is bizarre to me that they only focus on the issuing side. Now, it's quite correct. We have to have prudential regulations to make sure that the issuers are solid. Perfectly correct. But there is one sentence that will make stablecoins good. And that sentence is, we can count the number of words. Enable banks and fintechs to process stablecoins like checks. 9 words. You put those 9 words into stablecoin regulation and everything is good. You get singleness of money, you get cash equivalence, and the stablecoin is just a digital check. You can receive a stablecoin into a hosted wallet provided by your bank, and your bank will process it like a check. When you give a check to your bank, they don't buy it from you. They collect the money on your behalf. So those 9 words dropped into any stablecoin regulation, and stablecoins are not crypto assets which reference fiat. Stablecoins are just a new form factor of fiat with 9 words.
I love
could
that.
Could I come in here because I have I'm curious because you've been the I'll put it maybe the payments brain of Citi for over 20 years, and you've had all this evolution as the lead thinker in a biggest bank or one of the biggest banks in the world, and now you decided to well, depart, go a different way or do it on your own? And is it because you think banks are not moving fast enough there, or you want to, what's your motivation, if you may share it?
Yeah, look, simply put, before the US election, I have to be honest, before the US election, I thought that the design space was curtailed because I didn't see a way that banks could use public permissionless networks. And after the US election, it was clear to me that the design space would include public permissionless networks.
In America?
Well, as America goes, everyone else must follow. Otherwise, they will be significantly disadvantaged from a competitive perspective. So the logic is simply this. If you assumed that stablecoin regulation was coming in America, which I think was a strong, you could make a thesis about that after the US election, that was inevitable. Stablecoins live on public permissionless chains, and it would be intolerable only to allow non-banks to play that game. And therefore, the banks would lobby very strongly to be allowed to play in the stablecoin space, and they would be allowed to do so, and therefore banks will be allowed to participate in public permissionless blockchains. Yeah. And therefore, the design space just opens up. And in that design space, we can really, look, I satisfied myself, Ralph, that blockchains add something to financial services, because at the moment we do messaging between institutions, and messaging is fine, but there's no state. There's no state machine. And I satisfied myself. I wrote a paper called Ready Layer 1, and I satisfied myself that the addition of a state machine to financial services is good. But the problem is getting everyone to agree on using the same state machine. And booting that state machine from zero is very difficult. It's an adoption problem, not a technology problem. The difference in public permissionless networks is that they already exist. There's no boot problem. These venues are there, and if we can use them, then I think the design space leads to the conclusion that stablecoins will become the dominant form factor. Having said that, it's not the stablecoins that you see today. I don't believe that a stablecoin is an instrument issued by a non-bank. I believe that stablecoins can be issued by banks and non-banks and central banks. And if you follow the check analogy, if you understand the history of checks, you understand the future of stablecoins.
Yeah, but I mean, well, let me first state that I actually fully agree. So I think there's no way around stablecoins. But there is the American way of putting like an executive order denying CBDCs and pushing stablecoins, and then we have the European agenda, which does the exact opposite. So we have all forces behind CBDC, digital euro, etc. We have some banks playing with tokens, but not stablecoins. And so, well, I understand that the US is leading the world a bit, and maybe also the thinking of often innovation, etc. But for where we are today in Europe, well, we are on a different planet, I guess.
Well, I think we have to combine the planets. And if I had the opportunity to speak to the decision makers in Europe, I would say this. I would say, do you anticipate an influx of foreign stablecoins? Yes or no? The answer has to be yes. Okay, do you prefer the stablecoins to arrive on unhosted wallets or hosted wallets? Has to be hosted wallets. Do you prefer that once these stablecoins are in the hosted wallets that they are converted to euros, or they remain as dollar stablecoins, converted to euros? And so that this is three questions with, it's a very, very simple decision tree, but the conclusion of it is every bank and fintech in Europe needs to offer hosted wallets and needs to catch the stablecoins coming into Europe and convert them to euros. And this will be beautiful because everyone who catches a foreign stablecoin makes FX. It will be wonderful for the banks and the fintechs. They will make FX and they will make fees. But something else remarkable will happen, which is once every bank in Europe offers hosted wallets to receive foreign stablecoins, you will also have a European acceptance network for Euro stablecoins. And then we will have a very resilient financial system because every bank will be connected to 10 blockchains, and those 10 blockchains will carry foreign stablecoins and Euro stablecoins, and the banks and the fintechs will be able to provide the on and off ramps into their balance sheets, and we will have a super, super resilient financial system. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, no, I absolutely love your vision, Tony. How you see banks at the center of this stablecoin development. It's
and
not
fintechs, not just banks, and fintechs.
Banks and fintechs, exactly. But it's not sort of against the banks, right? It's the banks should issue stablecoins. They should accept them. They should process them. It's another form factor. I love all that. What I am struggling with is I love your analogy with the traveler's check, but the traveler check is simple. Everyone with half a brain can understand how to use it immediately. I have tried to use stable coins and downloaded wallets, and it is just an absolute nightmare. You know, all these promises about transparency and ease of use and instant and cheaper, it is all nonsense. It is the complete opposite. But I think you're trying to solve that problem. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, again, I think the best solution look, I'm not stopping people from having unhosted wallets. I'm not stopping people from buying and selling on exchanges. No problem, that can all continue. That's all good. But for regular folk and for regular businesses, the easiest way to receive a stablecoin is into a hosted wallet provided by your bank or your fintech. And what does that mean? An IBAN is 25 characters long. I'm just saying that the next time you log into your bank, you see another address, and that address might be 32 characters long, and that's your Ethereum address. And then I can send you stable coins to that address. Or you have a Solana address, and I can send you coins to that address. And the bank and the fintech can take care of the user interface. And you're not going to lose your password, or if you lose your password, your bank or your fintech will give you back your password. And these things will just be transacted like checks, but much, 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 much faster. So the atoms will be replaced by bits and bytes. Everything will take place very quickly. And we will have a very, very strange historical resonance where we're back in the world of check processing, but in the new form factor of stablecoins.
So that's at the front end, but also at the back end, right? You need to connect the CBDCs, the commercial bank money tokens, the stable coins into a common clearing and settlement.
Yes, and that's, look, check clearing is something that most people don't spend their time being fascinated by. But a check clearing system is simply a machine for claiming money from an issuer. So you have in checks, in ACH, in credit cards and debit cards, you have a many-to-many relationship, many issuers, many accepting points. And when the instrument goes to the accepting point needs a way of claiming the money back from the issuer. That's what a clearing system is. So you can't resolve the many-to-many network with bilateral connections. You need to have a clearing system. So there will be a clearing system for stablecoins. Whether I'm successful in building it or not, there will be a clearing system for stablecoins. And then
that's what you're doing, right? That's what Ubix, your new company, is, right?
And I appreciate you trying to tease out of me a sales pitch from my new company. I appreciate that very much. So yeah, that's what I'm intending to do, is build that clearing system to just make stablecoins regular money. Not a crypto asset pegged to fiat currency, but a new form factor of fiat currency. And the market structure that will lead to, I think, is pluralistic. Many, many issuers, many accepting points, many currencies. European stablecoins can be accepted all around the world, no problem. any one of you can fly into New York and use your credit card or debit card issued by a European bank in Macy's or Bloomingdale's, no problem. Someone can fly in from Japan into Frankfurt and use their Japanese yen issued instrument in Frankfurt, no problem. And I see stablecoins developing in exactly the same way. And it might sound radical, but my prediction for the stablecoin market structure is that everyone, and I mean everyone, every financial institution on the planet will receive and everyone will send.
I mean, that's lovely. Sorry, I keep coming up with problems, but one thing that does concern me is the sovereignty issue. We've seen that with payments in Europe, and with stablecoins, it looks like the US stablecoins are dominating. Circle and Tether, the providers are dominating. How do you see Europe really playing a big game here?
Well, again, I would bifurcate the game into several little parts. There's a stablecoin game which Europe should play, and the way that Europe plays the stablecoin game effectively is first what we've done is issuing. But the first thing that European banks and fintech should do is offer hosted wallets and accept. Catch the foreign stablecoins, convert them into euros, make the FX. Lovely. Banks enjoy making FX, believe me. Then, when every bank in Europe has got hosted wallets, European stablecoins can circulate freely within Europe. And then we can connect European stablecoins into overseas acceptance networks, and they can be accepted overseas. And Europe can enjoy the same benefits as people believe America will enjoy. So people believe that America will enjoy the benefit of diversified demand for their treasuries, because people around the world who buy stablecoins or hold stablecoins, the issuer is buying treasuries. And that, you might think of that as being, if you're running a bank, you can be either retail funded or wholesale funded. Which would you rather be? Retail funded. So would you rather be a retail funded country or a wholesale funded country? Retail funded. So if we in Europe, you see how I still count myself as a European?
Good.
So if we in Europe are successful, and in the UK are successful, if we have our head straight, we will do two things. We will accept the foreign stablecoins and convert them into local currency, and we will get our stablecoins accepted overseas, and then everyone will be very happy.
Wow, Tony, inspirational as always. Ralph, Javier, do you have anything?
I do have a question. I would like to, I mentioned before, but so we see banks in Europe, especially in Germany, actually, going or looking at what's called the commercial bank money token as their apparently preferred way forward into a tokenized world and issuing that. And well, I guess I have some understanding of why that is, but I would like to ask you, what do you think banks should do? Should they do both? Or should they do one or the other? Or where do you see the advantage or disadvantage between the two approaches?
So there is, look, I'm with Javier on synthesis. And if you follow the check analogy, so think about who can issue a check. Back in the day, American Express travelers checks were issued by a non-bank. A check can be issued by a big bank or a small bank. In the US, a check can be issued against a money market fund. And I have a strong recollection of this. I don't know if it still happens, but back in the 1990s, if you had a credit card, the credit card company would give you a checkbook, and you could write checks against your credit limit. So here's the thing. Here's the category error that we're making. Imagine that the only kind of check we ever saw was a traveler's check, and you were the regulator. and you said, aha, here's a new instrument. It's a pre-funded instrument. It's fully collateralized and it's issued by a non-bank. Let's write some rules for checks. And forevermore into the future, checks must be pre-funded, fully collateralized, and issued by non-banks. This would be ridiculous. So why are we doing it for stablecoins?
The analogy,
yeah.
Sorry. The analogy I use, very similar to that of the traveler's checks, is that of the casino chips or tokens.
Yes.
I guess that tokens terminology has been the one that has been used in digital assets for tokenization and all that. And that's money, because at the end of the day, a casino chip is money issued by a non-bank. And
yes,
is that all the features you mentioned for a traveler check also apply to casino chips, which is another source of inspiration. What I wanted to say that is that I fully agree with Tony. Probably we need time. One was not built in a day. Since the first coins until the first banknotes, we needed many centuries. So probably we will need time. And I guess that the real issue is that of adoption and the user experience. What matters, probably technology is well tested, and what we need is the adoption by a large number of users, and we'll see what they choose, and what the public chooses will be the real solution.
Well, we waiting to see what happens, I think, actually, Javier, with respect, is a very bad strategy, because we should anticipate in Europe that the foreign stablecoins are coming in large numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do nothing, they will arrive in unhosted wallets, and they will be invisible to the authorities, they'll be invisible to the tax system. And so if you just look at the market, forecasts of perhaps there being a few $1 trillion worth of stablecoins circulating, then it would be extraordinarily foolish to just let that happen and for a parallel system of unhosted wallets to emerge where we don't have surveillance. But not only that, it would be an enormous missed opportunity to catch all of those stablecoins and make the FX. So you guys will not probably be familiar with the game Pokemon. I am, because of my son. But Pokemon has a catchphrase, which is, you've got to catch them all. The good strategy for a bank or a fintech is, I call the stablecoin Pokemon strategy. You've got to catch them all. Every one you catch is FX. And so by chasing, it's a kind of enlightened self-interest with European banks chasing fighting each other to catch these stablecoins and win the FX revenue. They're actually doing something good for Europe, which is to make sure that the stablecoins are converted into euros, so they're on the balance sheet of European banks, and that they're in the regulated financial system. And by the way, it's also good for the stablecoin issuers, because the fundamental thing that they need is the acceptance network. So the wave is coming. Whether we like it or not, the wave is coming. Digital euro has got nothing to do with the stablecoin game. Nothing to do with the stablecoin. It's a different game. One game is Monopoly and one game is Cluedo, and there are two games going on at the same time. But let's not mix up the two different games. If we don't play the Monopoly game of stablecoins, then there are very bad consequences.
There's one angle, though, to this, which I think is linked to the sovereignty issue you already mentioned, and because the first occurrence really in Europe of stable coins and maybe seeing it as a threat was some years ago with Facebook, as you will remember, with Diem and then Libra. And so how can we avoid that money and stablecoins and everything has been taken over by a few big techs, which with billions of customers each, especially given that if we go like a regulatory, banking way? This is more country specific, maybe regions. In Europe, we have at least a region, but otherwise these players are not bound by national boundaries. So they are global, and they have an easier game to run wallets, as we've already seen, and put stable coins in there, etc.
Well, I believe that the market structure will not be oligopolistic. And the reason for that is just because of history. So let's think about previous iterations. In the age of checks, everyone sends, everyone receives. In the age of ACH, everyone sends, everyone receives. In the age of cards, everyone issues, everyone receives. That's the market structure for stablecoins. And the way you get to that market structure is, again, those 9 words allow banks and fintechs to process stablecoins like checks. If you get to that situation, you very quickly get universal acceptance network. And once you have let's think about this question. Why is it that the smallest bank in Europe can issue a credit card or a debit card? The only reason it can is because it doesn't have to build the acceptance network. The only reason. So what we should do to have a good market structure, a pluralistic market structure, is build the universal acceptance network, and then everyone can issue into that universal acceptance network. And then of course there will be big players and small players, but the fact is, Ralph, that you will probably use your chosen bank or fintech to receive stablecoins, and you will probably use your bank or fintech to use their stablecoin. And so the relationships, I think, will be largely preserved. The difference is that we'll just be transacting with a new form factor, and we've all seen these transitions before. This is no big deal. All of us are of an age where we were playing vinyl records, all of us, and they disappeared. When in 2004, when I got my first BlackBerry, it was the most amazing technology I'd ever seen in my life. It's disappeared. So these, Joseph Schumpeter described capitalism as creative destruction. It is.
Tony, this is terrific. But my old vintage device, which has not quite been replaced by a mobile phone here, tells me it's roughly time we wind down. But I just have to give one last question to you, because I'm intrigued by your thing about versus CBDC. You're comparing it to 2 games which are basically in different ballparks, to misuse a metaphor. Yeah. I somehow see that, but there is some competition, and they are surely a bit in the same game. And I also see that as a different dimension. I mean, I would compare stablecoins, unless you and I are completely wrong. This is going to be a massive thing, right? It's going to be used by institutional investors. It's a global thing. There are huge volumes already. It's going to get even bigger. This is going to be a $1 trillion business. Whereas the digital euro, much as though we like it, might be a more regional and a more sort of retail. So it's like comparing baseball to cricket, right? I think those are the 2 games.
The digital euro, to be successful, I think the best strategy would be to issue them onto public blockchains. And here's the rationale. So here's a question, and also Javi, I'd be interested in your view. When a nation state has a monopoly over money, should the money travel to the people, or should the people travel to the money? So there are actually 2 ways that this happens today. In cash, the money travels to where the people are. In RTGS, the participants travel to the RTGS, right? So the cash goes out into the world, but in RTGS, the users come in. So this is the question for CBDC. Should the CBDC travel to the people, or should the people travel to the CBDC? And I think at the moment, the way that it's being built is that the people have to travel to the CBDC, and I don't think they will make the journey. So I think a much better strategy is that the CBDC should travel to the people, And so I would like to see the digital euro issued onto 10 different public blockchains.
Wow.
But only if people want it to be successful. If we want it to be an interesting experiment, then by all means, let's build something monoline and very special purpose. But if we want it to be successful, then the digital euro should be on public permissionless blockchains, because that's where the people are. And to the argument where people say, well, they're too dangerous. Well, we send cash into streets. We send, the cash is circulating all over Europe in dangerous neighborhoods. The principle is that the official money needs to flow to where the people are. Because if we don't put the official money where the people are, the people will use unofficial money.
Tony, you've given us so much food for thought, as always. I don't think I can bear to look at your spooky image much longer, so we really have to call this.
What's happened is that the sun has moved over.
But it was so good to have you.
Let me share my very short and last reflection. I find Tony's tales very appealing. He's very, very plausible in his views. But on the other hand, we know that history actually happens and unfolds in very unpredictable ways. So I think at the end, it's all about adoption and how people feel and what people prefers. And if it's inconvenient and it is not easy, it will not be adopted unless the instrument is easy and convenient and it doesn't create any confusion or any problem, it will be adopted. That is the final issue.
Very good. Okay, so unless anybody else has anything urgent to say, I would thank you very much, Tony. And we can see there's a huge future both for fintechs and banks in this space. And it's going to be super exciting. And I have an amazing admiration for you leaving a cushy job at Citi to become a CEO of a startup. Not many have that courage. And I wish you every success and hope you become rich and famous.
I don't wish to become rich and famous.
May it happen to you all the same.
I'm satisfied that if people haven't seen the white paper, I'm satisfied that the white paper is a contribution to thinking on stablecoins, and that's enough for me.
Fantastic, and modest as always. So thank you very much, Tony, and Ralph.
Thank you so much
for having this very lively episode on a very future-looking topic. Okay, thank you to everybody, and see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Many thanks for watching and listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Looking forward to seeing you again next time.